I've met a lot of people in death metal who are like, oh yeah, we were punks. Yeah, we all started in punk, you know? And when we first put out the demo, I'll never forget this, which is like someone wrote on the internet, like that we should quote unquote stay in our hardcore lane.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
This is Ian. I play guitar in Kommand.
And Ian, how would you describe the music of Kommand?
I would describe it as dark, warlike death metal that does not really waste any time.
Would you say there's a specific era or style of death metal that you're partial to?
Yeah, definitely. Like the early Finnish stuff, and then some of the early Swedish stuff, a few American bands too. But yeah, like Demigod Demo, Abhorrence, Convulse, and then bands like Nihilist, Grave, Unleashed, and then for the States, like Early Incantation, and even like Deicide, and then also Bolt Thrower for sure.
So kind of that early '90s low end style of death metal.
Yeah, definitely.
And how did Command get together? What brought you guys together?
Well, it initially started as a three-piece, kind of a more of a project than an actual band. And it was myself, Jesse, our singer, and Sam Bosson, who plays drums. Jesse and I had another band before this. It was a hardcore band called Hoax. And that was we were kind of doing our last, records and tours and stuff. And Hoax was very much influenced by black metal. It was not a black metal band. It was 110% a hardcore band. And I think we just kind of wanted to do like a proper metal band. And we were friends with Sam. Sam's from LA, and both Jesse and I had moved from Massachusetts to LA around the same time in 2013, 2014. And shortly after that, we started this project with Sam. And I had actually had like some riffs and like maybe even a complete song written sometime before that. That was just kind of like, I was just trying to do something like the Nihilist demos, just that like simple, kind of primitive, but still like catchy and almost punk death metal. So that's kind of where it started.
I'm curious, what led you to move from Massachusetts to LA other than the weather?
Well, that's like half of it, honestly. But yeah, like I think that it was probably a couple of reasons. Like I've been friends with Jesse, the singer of Command, for a long time. And, he had come out here a couple of times and was like, LA is so great. And I had never really thought much of it one way or the other. A lot of people are like, oh, LA, like Hollywood or whatever. But that's definitely, such a small part of it. And
There's definitely that like East Coast, West Coast rivalry.
for sure. But like there's so many like different like extreme underground scenes here that like have nothing to do with like mainstream, you know, popular entertainment at all. Like totally the opposite. And and our old band came out here a couple times and just like always had good shows and met more and more people that we became friends with. And I think like, we lived in kind of a smaller town that was like, maybe partly a college area. And I think we just kind of like wanted to, go to the big city and try it out, and been here for 10 years almost.
And you and Sam had been in a more death thrash project before, right?
Me and Sam?
Yeah.
No. Which project are you referring to?
Weren't you guys in Paranoiac?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we do Paranoiac. That's more of a recent project, though.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We put that tape out last year. But yeah, Sam's also in that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think Sam, like at the time, he had maybe done some metal stuff, but like mostly also had done hardcore bands. So it was like everyone kind of we'd always like, all of us had been into extreme metal, it's not like we were just like, oh, let's do a metal band. Like, it was definitely something we were very into anyways, but we did definitely come more from like hardcore. And that's kind of like where the scene that I started going to shows, when I was a teenager and stuff was mostly hardcore and punk. Sam's like, like he's like definitely like was like such a great hardcore drummer. And then like we started this band, he was like, oh, like I got to get a double bass pedal. And he's like, yeah, like I've done that before. And then within like a month, I feel like he was just like so proficient at double bass. So it was pretty cool.
And on your side, was there a learning curve to adjusting to this early '90s death metal style?
A little bit, yeah. And that was cool. It was definitely a challenge because I had listened to a lot of death metal, but I had never really tried to play it. So it did amount to like just, listening to those bands to like learn how to play their songs and then kind of taking that and running with it. I feel like with like every record we do, I do challenge myself a little more in to be like a little more, like to have the riffs be a little more complicated and without it sounding like tech or noodly.
I've got a few friends who are big death metal fans, but also started more in, the 90s hardcore scene. And I've spoken to a few bands, probably friends of yours around the California area who had a similar trajectory. Do you feel the stuff like Bolt Thrower, Nihilist, all the bands that we mentioned naturally had kind of a punky feel to them?
I think so, definitely. I know, like, even like I listened to an interview with the singer of Bolt Thrower, and he was just like talking about going to see like Sacrilege and like how that was the band for him. And like, that's obviously they are on the line between punk and metal for sure. And I was surprised because I've met a lot of people in death metal who are like, oh yeah, we were punks. Yeah, we all started in punk. And when we first put out the demo, I'll never forget this, which is like someone wrote on the internet like that we should quote unquote stay in our hardcore lane, and that was always stuck with me. I thought that was really funny, and I've never responded to anything that anyone ever says on the internet like about any music I make, and I didn't respond then. It just, I don't know, it just like struck me like, oh yeah, like people do go like, hey, you can't just like come and do this music because you want to, like, I don't know. And it's not like I really like set out to like, or like we set out to like prove ourselves or anything. We're just like, we're still going to make this music, but I don't know, just something to note and like a funny memory.
Meanwhile, all the bands that people think of as like true or pure or first wave black metal bands grew up on like Kiss and AC/DC and Van Halen and stuff like that. So everyone,
absolutely, yeah,
everyone kind of needs to get over their ideas of trueness or cultness or whatever goes through their heads.
Yeah.
Well, since we were talking about your guitar playing and how you try to push yourself with every album, can you tell me how a Kommand song starts? Like, what's the process for you?
I'm always writing riffs, just like individual riffs on my own. And like, I just basically have like a bunch of recordings of riffs. And then I slowly try and like listen to the riffs again and like put them into riffs that could go well with one another. And then I come back to it and I think about it. And like, that process has become more and more advanced over the years. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but like, I just learned how to like program drums, like on a computer, and they don't sound good or anything. They don't have to, but it's like cool that I can do that and like send it to the other guys in Kommand to be like, this is kind of like a rough draft, like of what I'm thinking. Like, obviously the drums are just like, I just like make a blast beat, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is a fast part, but like, it's not detailed or anything and the drums sound bad, but just so the other guys can hear it. And then, we get together as a band and flesh out stuff that sounds awkward or like, sort of do another draft like as a band. And the drums are a big part of it too. And I think Sam adds a lot of character to the songs through the drum parts that he plays, and definitely bass and the other guitarist too. And like guitar solos are, we try and, I think guitar solos in the past, I think have kind of been an afterthought, like, oh shit, we should have a solo. But like on this record, we tried to like write them more ahead of time and really do a couple drafts of the solos too. And then lyrics are kind of written to the songs, and then Jesse, our singer, might make, suggestions for adjusting things based on what he has. So they're kind of built up that way.
Is all the music written by you?
Yeah, like the foundation. I write all the riffs. Yeah.
And it sounds like the song structures are mostly set before it gets to the rest of the band.
Yeah, pretty much. But then there's just sometimes where like we try it as a band and it's like, oh, this is awkward. It's not going to work, And I like that. I think that's cool because then I feel like it's like a little more collective and it's not just like me, deciding everything.
talk about this new album.
Yeah.
It's called Death Age.
Yes.
And it will be coming out on the 31st of March through 20 Bucks Spin. When did you actually start writing the music?
It was probably shortly after Terrorscape came out, which was 2020. And yeah, like I think that when we finished Terrorscape, which was the first LP we did, I was like, well, every band I've ever been in has only the most we've ever done is one full length. And so I just like unconsciously was like, well, that's probably it, but it doesn't have to be it for any style of music, and definitely not for death metal. Plenty of bands put out multiple releases. And I think like contemporary bands like our peers that we look up to, like Innumerable Forms or like Blood Incantation or Cerebral Rot, they have done multiple releases. And I was like, oh, we can do that too. And our bass player, Tim, was like, hey, like if you have anything, we'd love to hear it. So I started writing riffs for that, and that was kind of encouraging. But yeah, that was probably 2020, and we all had a little more time on our hands, but it was definitely like I did a ton of stuff by myself.
We spoke about your songwriting process and how you tried to push yourself with every album. But specifically, was there anything you wanted to try on this album that you didn't get to do on the first album?
I think like one thing I've been kind of into lately is like when I write guitar riffs, I try and work, whether intentionally, I don't think I do this intentionally, but like I end up working within like maybe some almost generic riffs that are like classic within extreme metal, but then try to like add another note or like tweak it some way, like within the rhythm of the riff to make it not generic. Cause I think like a lot of bands that like I'm inspired by, like a band like Deicide or like Slayer, where like they do kind of work within some of the same notes that everyone else plays, but they make it sound like unique, and it grabs you by like these little details, And so I kind of tried to do some more of that. And I also kind of got into like figuring out, for some reason, like I was into like figuring out how many notes that I could get in a row, but without it sounding like I was playing like just a bunch of the same, like just half steps down the guitar, and be like, oh, I got like 7 notes in a row on this riff, but like they're kind of all like back and forth and like jumbled. I don't know if that makes sense, and then like song structure wise, like I think we tried to like experiment a little more, because I think in the past we've relied on a lot of like more traditional metal song structure, like that, like Slayer would use, like where it's like intro A B, and then like a slow part, you know what I mean? And so tried to like, look at bands like Incantation, where like they really like have like, it's almost like a story, and like they really push and pull you and like get you from start to finish, but like you're kind of not sure how you got there. And I think the song on the record Global Death is a good example of that. It does kind of start off in like a more traditional way, but then I feel like it gets kind of weird, and I would like to do that more in the future with Kommand, little by little.
So both Terrorscape and Death Age are under half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consciously try to write short albums, or did it just kind of end up that way?
I think it just ended up that way. I think that it might be like just we like I said earlier, like we kind of just like we want to make our point, without wasting too much time. And like, I guess like one of my favorite records is Rain and Blood, and it's like 28 minutes. And I read this interview once with, I think it was Jeff Hanneman, and he was like talking about like how like he loves Megadeth and Metallica, but like he would listen to that, and I think even Hell Awaits, and he would be like, why did they keep going back to this riff? And so like I mean like Ride the Lightning is like one of my favorite records ever, but I listen to it sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, you've gone back to this riff like 5 times, like, and so I don't want to do that, I think. So, but as far as why it's 6 songs, I'm not really sure.
Well, was there a point where you'd finished the songs and decided that it was complete, and you just liked the way that it was as it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I don't know if we read the same Slayer interview. Sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but you just
No, it's fine. I love it.
you just reminded me. I think I read a similar interview. You know, Kerry King can be a little bit blunt,
Sure.
doesn't mince his words, and he's talking about like the difference between like Slayer songwriting and Metallica songwriting, and he said something effective like, "We're not going to play the same riff 8 times just for the sake of it."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And after you hear Kerry King say that or whatever, you're just like listen to Metallica and you're like, oh my God, they do it so much, you know. No diss to Metallica, still one of the greats. I still love them, you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the recording of this album. Where did you guys end up going?
So we ended up doing the bulk of the recording with our friend Mike Kriebel. He has a studio called Golden Beat in Los Angeles. And we did most of the tracking there. We ended up doing some additional guitars with our friend Andy, who he operates out of a studio called Paradise Studios. And he actually recorded the last Mortiferum LP. And so we kind of, yeah, started talking with him about doing some other guitars. It was partially like a logistic thing. Mike was on tour, and we also just kind of wanted to work with Andy. The studio he has is pretty cool, and he has there's some like nice tube amps to try out and stuff. So it was sort of a bit of both. But yeah, most of it was done with Mike Kriebel at Golden Beat, and he recorded everything we've done. And he's someone who we almost like grew with a little bit as he like recorded more and more records over the years. We probably met him in like, at least I met him in like 2013. There was a punk DIY venue called East 7th, and he used to do sound there. And then he recorded me and Jesse's old band for like a 7-inch, and then like a couple other punk projects that are like bands that some of us had been in. And yeah, he just was like the obvious choice. And like once you have a good experience, recording with someone, it's like it's priceless, and you just keep working with that person, and that's definitely been the case with Mike.
How do you describe Mike's approach as an engineer?
I think, I don't know. I mean, he definitely like gets like a really like, I think he's, interested in, he leaves it up to us for sure, but I think he can get like a really good, like natural, roomy sound. And he does like, we did all the drums to tape and then everything else digital. And I think that was like a pretty cool combo. I think we've always done that. But yeah, also just like working with a friend is great. Yeah,
It's comfortable.
for sure. Yeah. And like, yeah, I sort of don't know what else to say, but
Yeah, yeah. No worries. I mean, the sound on this album is a little bit thicker than what you guys had on the previous album, Terrorscape. Was that conscious? Were you guys experimenting with getting a beefier sound, like maybe more of a later Bolt Thrower kind of sound?
yeah, definitely. And we did try a couple different things. We played live with both guitars, play live with a Ampeg solid state VH140C. But on this recording, we just used tube amps. So we just used Marshall PV5150 and then some slight gain like through a pedal, and then just like a higher gain pickup. But like I got this pickup that was like a little more low end, I think. And all the guitars were recorded with the same guitar. So I think that was something we never did before. I think in the past there was just like so many different guitar tones going on. Like we would do one track with like this guitar and a tube amp, and one track with like a different guitar and a solid state amp, and then it maybe got like a little muddled sometimes. I don't know that anybody else hears that, but like when I compare the two, I feel like the guitar on this is a little more crisp and a little more natural sounding. And that was definitely inspired by like that, yeah, that Bolt Thrower, like kind of, it's like a warm tube amp sound, but it's also pretty crunchy without going on like full on like Pantera crunch,
Right, right, yeah. So to clarify, both you and Sam recorded using the same guitar on this album?
Yes. Yeah. So there's two Sams in the band. I probably should clarify that, but there's Sam Bosson.
Oh yeah, Sam Shriver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Sam Shriver and I, we use the same guitar. And that was just like an idea that I forget someone suggested to us. And we were like, maybe even Sam came up with it. And we tried it and we really liked how it sounded. I think it just sounds like really full and like, you know how like Bolt Thrower records, like they almost sound like there's just like 10 guitars playing at the same time. And like it almost like has a chorus effect.
Yeah, it's almost like mono, right? It's so like monolithic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I wonder on those recordings if like some of the guitars are like slightly out of tune or something. I don't know. It has this. We didn't really try and go like full crazy, like try and get that because, you know,
Yeah.
trying to do our own thing, but it is an influence.
Can you tell me about the gentleman who mastered the album and how he got involved with this?
So yeah, that's Arthur Risk, and he mastered our second demo, and we sort of, he's someone we've known for a long time. Sam Bosson, our drummer, and him definitely go way back and have like shared the stage together, like, played in bands together. And, he's just like someone who's just done like a lot of really great records over the years in, a lot of, extreme subgenres and stuff. Like, I know obviously the Power Trip records, and then like, I think like done stuff for Innumerable Forms. And, we went to him for that second demo and really liked how that sounded. And so we wanted to see what he could do for this, and are really happy with how it came out.
And what would you say Arthur brought to the sound?
I think he just made it sound like huge, and like really brought out the crisp guitars, and like the kind of like just thunderous drums and bass, and like low end. And then also like, I think he sat the vocals at like a really good spot for us. And yeah.
And this will be your first album for 20 Buck Spin?
Yeah, that's correct.
How did 20 Buck Spin get involved with the release? Who reached out to who?
When we put out the demos, 20 Buck Spin distroed them. And I think, 20 Buck Spin reached out to us. And Dave, who does 20 Buck Spin, said like, if you guys ever want to do anything in the future, I'd be open to talking about it. And then when we were doing this record, we were kind of thinking about, who we wanted to put it out. And we thought we'd hit up 20 Buck Spin, because we're all like big fans of the label. There's so many great bands on that label. It's like really pretty wild how many good bands are on one label. And and he was down. And so, it was cool because the record was pretty much done too. So it wasn't like a long drawn out thing where we're like, oh yeah, we're postponing recording a bunch of times. It was like pretty much done. So, and we could send him like, like a rough mix of what we were working on, and it's been great. And I really look forward to the record coming out and doing more stuff with 20 Buck Spin in the future.
Cool. So the second Kommand album is called Death Age, and it will be released by 20 Buck Spin on March 31st of this year. Ian, what's the best way to get the album? How can people order it?
I think the best way to get the album is from 20 Buck Spin through their online store. And you can, I guess, go to their Instagram or website and you'll find it there. Yeah.
Will it also be available through your own Bandcamp page or just the 20 Buck Spin Bandcamp?
I think for now it'll just be available from 20 Buck Spin. We will have copies at any upcoming shows that we do, which we have a couple things in the works that aren't finalized, but you can get copies from the band wherever we play. And it will be on streaming as well. Obviously all the streaming services will have it.
Do you want to say anything about the LPs that 20 Buck Spin is manufacturing for this?
Yeah, we've got your classic black vinyl. We've got a green and black one, and then there's like a blue and gray one, and then tape and CD. There might be one more color. I confess I might have missed one, but.
And if people want to follow Kommand online, what's the best way to do that?
It's command.death on Instagram, and we do have a website, command.band. Yeah, the Instagram is probably the best one.
You mentioned live shows. Do you have any tours coming up or anything around the area? Around your area, I should say?
Yeah, we're working on putting together a record release show for the end of March or beginning of April, just figuring out some of the details. And then the plan is within the next year to do West Coast and East Coast, but that stuff is still in the works right now.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I guess the only thing we didn't talk about was like the sort of more like thematic concept of the album.
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so like the first demo, like every release had a theme or has a theme, so like The first demo was like more about like conflict in northern Syria. The second demo was World War I. The LP was like internal Soviet conflicts. And this one is sort of a continuation of that, but it's more like it's like a future conflict. So it's speculative. And it's like sort of a conflict that takes place in some sort of like apocalyptic future scenario that's brought about by like technological developments and climate disaster and resource disaster and stuff like that. So, the lyrics kind of explore that, and as well as the art too.
So not like a nocturnal thing where we're fighting robots in space, right?
No space.
Nocturnus, I mean.
Yeah, no space. Oh, you mean the band Nocturnus?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no.
Aren't all their albums like some kind of like space, like Star Wars kind of thing?
I've only listened to the first one.
I think that's the only one you need, honestly.
Okay, yeah. And I saw them once, and the dude has that headset, like where the mic comes down, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like attached to a headset. They were cool.
Yeah, I think Macabre doing that.
Okay, yeah. They did a Morbid Angel song too, like because he was in that band, I think. He was in Morbid Angel.
Yeah, Browning, right?
Yeah, for a little bit.
Are you a big history guy? Do you like to watch the History Channel and stuff like that?
I'm not as big a history guy as Jesse, our singer. He knows a lot about history. I know a little bit, some of the bigger details, but yeah. And he was like very much influenced, I think, by like a lot of like speculative fiction and like sci-fi stuff, and like also like kind of just like doomsday like YouTube videos and stuff. And so it's sort of multiple converging influences. And then we also had this artist that Jesse knows, Baharata Danu. He's from Jakarta. I probably just butchered his name, and I'm sorry. But he did a great job like creating like a visual representation of the themes. And it's like kind of like a digital tracing collage style that sort of goes with the like kind of biotech doomsday themes of the record. And it's sort of like, it looks like a death metal record, but it's also like kind of something different. And, there's like lots of imagery of like stuff that's like decaying, but it's not like, a decaying corpse or anything. So we're pretty psyched about the art too.
Cool. How did you find out about the artist?
Jesse was somehow in contact with him, and that's how it started. I think Jesse just was like, they somehow came in contact, and Jesse was like really into his art. And so they stayed in touch, and that's kind of how it happened.
Cool. Thanks, Ian.